Have you ever sat across from someone who smiles perfectly, says all the right things, and yet your body tightens as if a cold draft just slipped through the room? In the very first seconds, your intuition registers a mismatch, eyes without fire, a voice without warmth. That isn't paranoia. It's your soul's radar picking up the dissonance between what's being said and what's actually moving underneath. Hold that feeling for the next 10 seconds, a courteous smile, and an invisible gap. In that wordless space, Carl Jung's psychology begins to speak. We call the hidden side of the psyche the shadow, the feelings, desires, and drives we don't want to see in ourselves because we're guarding a good image. When banished, the shadow doesn't vanish. It takes the side roads. It leaks through a slightly rigid tone when you share good news. It shows up as a harmless joke that cuts where you're tender. It's the congratulation that says the right words but has no heartbeat. Jung reminds us what we repress will find a way to live, even through the smallest cracks. And in close relationships, family, colleagues, lovers, those tiny cracks can reroute the entire atmosphere between two people. The hardest truth to face is this: many cold behaviors aren't deliberate cruelty. They're the residue of an inner split. On the surface, each of us wears a persona, a socially polished mask that's kind, competent, agreeable. Backstage, the unacknowledged parts: self-doubt, envy, fear, the need to control, keep breathing. When the gap between persona and shadow grows too wide, the body starts speaking. Instead, shoulders tighten when you share a joy, ethers drift when you ask to be heard. Congratulations lands flat like a system notification. You're not misreading it. You're hearing two inner worlds colliding. So the point here isn't to call people out. It's to refine your inner sensor so you can protect your peace without losing your humanity. We won't label. We won't diagnose. We'll look for patterns. One rule before drawing conclusions: observe at least 3 times in 3 different contexts over a generous span of time. A single slip is human. Repetition is a message. And where there's a message, you have the right to set a boundary. There's a core mechanism Jung emphasized: projection. We hand to others what we haven't accepted in ourselves. The person insecure about their competence may read your confidence as arrogance. The one terrified of losing control may call your freedom irresponsible. Someone who's buried their passion might sneer at your effort, not because you're wrong, but because your light accidentally shines on their unvisited darkness. When you understand this, you get less pulled into their defensive dance. You stand in the center of yourself. But Jung's voice doesn't stop at unmasking. It points toward individuation, letting opposites sit at the same table: warmth with boundaries, kindness with truth, courtesy with heartbeat. You don't need to become a judge. You become a gatekeeper for your energy. When you meet polite coldness, the question isn't, how bad is that person, but am I shrinking to keep the peace? What boundary lets me stay kind without betraying myself? Jung invites you back to the body before and after each interaction. Read 3 signals. Does your chest open or close? Is your breath deep or shallow? Are your thoughts bright or foggy? The body is the meter that tells the truth. If you hear an inner voice that scolds, you are too sensitive. Don't make it a big deal. Know this might be the negative animus in women, or an old complex approval mother complex speaking through you. Don't crush that voice. Dialogue with it. What are you trying to protect? What would help you relax? When judgment is properly heard, it can change jobs from prosecutor to vigilant gatekeeper. That's when you stop fighting yourself and start protecting yourself. A moral caution at the start: we're going to talk about signs of covert hostility, but we don't claim the right to mind read or condemn. The goal isn't nitpicking, it's restoring your wholeness where kindness no longer equals self-erasure. So alongside watching others, we'll also face the mirror. Have I ever used sarcasm to hide my hurt? Have I ever gone cold to a friend's joy because I was lost in my own failure? Owning our side is the fastest way to pull the thorn out of the relationship. What will you gain from this journey? First, a refined map: the difference between intimate teasing and humiliating sarcasm, between accidental forgetting and pattern sabotage, between empowering care and controlling care. Second, a set of concise boundary lines you can use at home, at work, and in love. Third, light but deep practices: a 60-second body check, a 90-day pattern log, and a 10-minute imaginative dialogue with your own shadow. Most importantly, an immediate shift in posture. You do not have to shrink to keep any relationship. I promise to keep the tone gentle and precise. No jargon overload, no rosy promises, no cheap drama. Just you, a flashlight, and a few dusty rooms of the psyche waiting to be lit. The clearer we see, the less we fear. And when fear loosens, we can be kind to others without betraying ourselves. Before we continue, take a quick test. Think of one polite but cold person in your life. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. And ask your body, near them do I open or close? If the answer is closed, that isn't a verdict, it's data. Put that data in your pocket. We'll need it as we walk through each sign. And remember the rule, seek patterns, not theatrics. To avoid the two extremes, groundless suspicion and naive vulnerability, we'll learn to hold the tension of opposites, what Jung called the transcendent function. So a third path opens clear eyes, soft heart. I'll give you clear criteria for when to address things directly, when to narrow contact, and when to offer a quiet goodbye. Not every relationship needs rescuing. Often what we need is clarity. If you are ready, next we'll enter the first sign, a kind of politeness with thorns that often dresses up as humor. I'll offer 3 quick identifiers, one work and one family scenario, plus a boundary line that's both firm and warm. Walk with me, we won't hunt witches. We'll reclaim dignity. And who knows, on the way to recognizing another's darkness, you might meet a fragment of your own light. Let's go straight to the most common form of politeness with barbs. Sarcasm dressed up as humor. You know the feeling of everyone's laughing, the mood seems light, and yet you walk home with a thin scratch on the inside. Jung would say this is where the persona, the likable mask, slips against the shadow, the disowned part. The other person isn't necessarily malicious. Unadmitted material is simply leaking out, and just kidding is the handiest coat for an arrow. A coated arrow clears the gate more easily. Picture a team meeting. You finally present an idea you've been carrying for a month. A colleague smiles. Great idea, sounds ambitious. Light chuckles ripple around the room. You smile back to be polite, but your heart hiccups, your chest tightens. That's data. Don't rush to judge. Just note the misalignment between words and energy. Where there's misalignment, Jung says there's shadow. And the shadow loves to borrow the voice of humor because that way it gets said and stays safe under the banner of, I'm only joking. It helps to distinguish intimate humor from humiliating sarcasm. Intimate humor makes you open, you feel lighter, closer, more seen. Humiliating sarcasm makes you contract, you feel smaller, hit at a tender spot. Try 3 silent questions first. Did the joke strike the core of your identity or a vulnerability you once shared in confidence? Second, when you say, I'm not comfortable, do they stop and make amends? Third, does the theme repeat over time? If all 3 lean unsafe, you're looking at a sharpened arrow. At home, the pattern gets subtler. Right before dinner, someone says, you're always so busy, so successful, huh? The tone is flat, neither sweet nor sour. Before you can check how you feel, the follow-up lands. With that schedule, who could live with you? Laughter again. If your throat goes dry, that's your body speaking. Jung invites us back to sensation because the body doesn't lie. Before reacting, try a small move. Bring attention to chest, belly, and back for 15 seconds and ask, am I opening? Am I opening or closing? The body's answer is a better compass than any argument. In love, sarcasm, pretending to be closeness is the most eroding. A friend shared, whenever she's excited about a new project, her boyfriend winks, just don't burn cash this time. She laughs, he's just worried for me. Months later, she hesitates before every decision. This is projection, unable to reconcile their own money anxiety. Someone shoots that shadow onto you and names your devotion reckless. The worst is when we believe their projection and shrink ourselves to keep the peace. Jung warns, when we identify with another's projection, we lose the inner axis. Are you shrinking to avoid tension? What to do when a joke lands like a jab? Lead with kindness and clarity. No lecturing, no counterattack. Speak the truth of your experience. Warm, brief, precise. I love a playful vibe, and when we joke about topic X, my body tightens. I don't want that kind of joke anymore. It's short truth. Clear boundary, no moral labels. If they listen and adjust, the connection deepens. If they smirk and flip it, you're too sensitive, you've learned something about how close to stand. To avoid both paranoia and naivete, keep a simple rule: 3 times 3 contexts, 3 key moments. One slip is human. 3 times across different settings right after your wins or at high-stakes moments. That's a pattern. Once it's a pattern, you're allowed to name it and recalibrate. Share less, ask for fewer favors. Shorten hangouts or bring a trusted third person to sensitive settings. Mental health isn't about winning arguments. It's about keeping your breath steady in the presence of others. Which relationship needs a gentle recalibration from you this week? Add a cultural and group dynamics lens. In many U.S. workplaces, banter is normal, even bonding. The problem is how easily banter slides into banter bullying when it targets identity, gender, race, background, or past vulnerabilities. Try a micro version of DEAC, describe the event. At lunch, when jokes about X came up, share impact. I felt myself shrink. Specify a request. Let's skip that topic and name the positive outcome so we can work smoothly together. Short, non-accusatory, enough data for a mature response. In families, jokes with thorns often hide behind tradition. We've always been blunt. When you hear that, return to the body. Does blunt warm you or make you wince? If it's the latter, try firm, gentle truth. I value straight talk. Straight talk doesn't have to hurt. Let's avoid the topics I've said are sensitive. You don't need to change anyone's role. You're guarding the door to your inner home. To keep perspective, neither dramatizing nor minimizing, use a soft metric. For 90 days, track who repeats the same 3 sarcastic themes about you when they show up before deadlines, after your good news, when you need help. And your internal effects: lost sleep, procrastination, self-doubt. That mini-map clarifies who's safe to be close with, who's better as a cordial acquaintance, and where you need very specific boundaries. You're not condemning anyone. You're choosing the energy configuration that protects your wholeness. The Jung voice also points the arrow inward. Have you ever borrowed a laugh to cover a temporary sense of inadequacy? We all project sometimes. A quick practice to avoid becoming the wise one who lectures is a written dialogue with your inner judge. What are you trying to protect when you joke like that? Often the answer is, I'm afraid of being left, or I'm afraid I'm not enough. Named fear needs fewer disguises. You soften with yourself, and strangely, you soften with others while keeping your boundaries. What is your inner judge trying to protect today? 3 micro practices for daily traction. 1. Mother mirror before a decision. Musk. If I do this to keep the peace, what's the cost? If I tell the truth, what's the gift? Write 2 lines and pick the smallest honest action. 2. The 1% boundary. Add just 1% of clarity each day. I need 10 more minutes instead of silent resentment. Reply to email during your chosen window. 3. Broken bowl ritual. Draw a bowl mark, a crack, right inside one. Know you'll honor this week, then trace the crack in gold. Healing doesn't erase the scar, it lets the seam shine. Which micro practice will you try first? Finally, don't forget your community. Share 1 small story in the comments, a time out, just kidding, jab cut you how you responded, and 1 lesson you'll carry. Naming the story helps close the scratch in you and gives the others a place to see themselves and to borrow courage. This is Jung's work in everyday life, turning private experience into shared consciousness, so the shadow no longer has to sneak around. If this resonates, stay for the next chapter. Why covert sabotage is rarely loud, how to tell pattern from accident, and how to protect your path without hardening into war. What story will you offer the circle today? We're stepping into still, quiet waters where support can quietly become sabotage, and I'm happy for you lands like a hollow congratulation. Jung would caution us not to label people as bad, but to look at the unconscious pattern underneath. When someone hasn't made peace with their own regret or failure, the shadow exhales through tiny acts: a crucial email sent a minute too late, forgetting to pass on key info, advice that sounds reasonable yet nudges you off course. There's no loud explosion, just a few degrees off, and your boat slips past its true harbor. Covert sabotage is rarely crude. It's polite, plausible, even dressed up as care. Q. Where have you felt polite help dim your inner flame? Picture this: you finally land that interview, the one you've wanted all year. You tell a close friend. She smiles. Amazing, just don't get your hopes too high. Later you ask her for the prep materials. I'll send them tonight, she says. Morning comes nothing. You walk in missing critical data. She isn't evil. She truly believes she was just busy. But look closer and a pattern appears. Those forgettings cluster right before your important thresholds. Where the unconscious gets activated, behavior slips off the rails and the shadow takes the scenic route. Q. Before a big moment, who often forgets and how does your body react? At work, this pattern often wears the mask of expertise. A senior colleague sighs. I tried that path. It doesn't work. It sounds like kindness. Notice, though, how such advice arrives precisely when your creative solution would put you on the radar. His shadow may fear being eclipsed, and its defense is to pull you back to safe enough. He's not deceiving you. He's deceiving his own shadow. In families, the sabotage is softer and deeper. An older sister insists, wait a few more years before you start a business, get stable first. That can be wise sometimes, but if every dream gets wrapped in, not yet ask, who in this house once failed by taking a risk, whose pain never got named? Family shadow travels through safety. Words, slowly be sure, don't overdo it. Empowering love says, I'm here if you need me. Whatever you choose, be true to yourself. Controlling love says, I worry about you, so don't risk it. Worry often disguises fear's real temperature. Q. Which voice do you hear at home, empowering love or protective control? Then there's the quiet arms race, silent competition. You share your first 10K run, they answer nice. I did a half marathon last week. Nothing wrong, and yet your joy shrinks like it needs permission to exist. Jung would point to projection when someone can't accept their limits and they live by comparison to feel enough. They don't know comparison drains the heart. They only know your light makes their eyes ache. How do we separate accident from pattern? Use a simple one-end system grid. One time it was human. Repeats over 3 months around similar milestones before deadlines, talks, or right after your good news equals tendency. It upgrades to a system with 2 signs. 1. They dodge responsibility when named. I just forgot what's the big deal. And 2, they soothe you into doubting your intuition. You're overthinking it. At the system level, don't argue design strategy. Strategy isn't war. Step 1, slow down. When something's offhand to belly, 3 deep breaths, name the sensation, tightening fuzziness, broken flow. Step 2, keep a 90-day log, who context specific task timing outcome. Step 3, calibrate access. People in the conditional safe zone get updates on what's done, not on what's delicate. Chronic late folks don't hold mission-critical tasks. Last-minute forgetters meet your shadow calendar. Your internal due date is 1 to 2 days ahead of the official one, not manipulation craft protecting creative energy from leaks. When you must speak, keep it short with a friendly DE-esque. Before last week's presentation, describe when the file arrived late, I felt scrambled and small. Express, next time I want the file 24 hours early. Specify, if that's not possible, I'll reassign the task. Consequence, clear, warm, no moral labels. If they're mature, they'll adjust. If they pivot to sarcasm or blame, that's data to narrow exposure. What's one DE-esque sentence you could deliver this week? For silent competition, the best reply isn't a bigger story. It's opting out of the comparison game. I want to stay with my joy for a moment. Tell me your part after you protect your moment and invite equal conversation. Some will join you. Others will retreat because they only know symmetry. Either way, you stay on your axis. A necessary refinement. Not all caution is sabotage. Sometimes don't rush. This is real risk assessment. Your litmus test is temperature after the talk. Do you feel clearer and larger even if you must change course, or smaller and foggier? Good counsel grows you even when it stings. Shadow-tinted advice shrinks you even when it sounds reasonable. Trust your body's read your compass in the noise. A grounded example, you're a single mom committed to a new certification. Family says raising a kid is hard enough. Why suffer more? If your heart sinks not because they're right, but because they brushed your hope, set a boundary with gentle truth. I know you care. This certificate expands my options. I'll need pickup help on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If that's tough for anyone, I'll arrange another plan. You honor their love, keep your decision, and invite the real trade-offs into the room. Shadow hates clarity. Practical light lowers its power. Q. What boundary could turn a vague no into a workable how? Humility check. Have you ever pulled someone back because you feared being left behind? Write one honest line. No one has to see it. What did I say when that kept me safe but made them small? Not to shame yourself, to understand the mechanism in you. When you can spot your own shadow speaking, you are less likely to get dragged into someone else's dance. You'll stand steadier and be kinder. Community practice in the comments. Share 1 body sensation you notice when triggered. A recurring symbol from dream or imagination, wolf broken bowl wave. And 3, one small, safe, values-aligned action you'll take in 24 hours to honor that part. Answer email in your window. Say I'll reply later instead of an automatic yes. Respond to others with gentleness. Your acknowledgement could be someone's lantern tonight. As you learn to spot polite obstruction and quiet competition, another thin but stubborn layer appears: performative closeness. The person shows up but isn't truly present. The congratulations sound like template sentences. Help is often promised but rarely timely. This is the friendly mask Jung called an overworked persona. The relationship looks fine, but the heartbeat is missing. Next, we'll take off that mask: why people keep emotional distance, to protect an image that distinguish real connection from performed connection, and 3 ways to restore genuine presence without becoming the feelings police. Bring your 90-day log and your body compass. We'll need both in the land of heartless intimacy. If this lit a lantern in you, keep it burning. We're building the muscle to protect what's alive without hardening our hearts. We're touching a thin but stubborn layer in modern relationships: performative intimacy. On the surface, it looks like care check-ins, like "I'm here for you." But when you actually need a shoulder, your hand lands on empty space. Jung would ask us to look beneath the surface. This is persona, the polite, competent, social mask strapped on too tightly, while the living feeling underneath gets split off to keep the image safe. The other person isn't a liar. They're simply not ready for vulnerability, so they hover at room temperature, cool enough not to crack. That's why you can spend hours together, do a dozen things side by side, and still feel alone. You notice it in small details. You text a friend, "I got in." They reply instantly. "Congrats," with 3 confetti emojis. And then silence. No gentle curiosity about your journey. Or the day you have a minor surgery, they post a story: "Proud of my strong friend," tagging you. But there's no call, no visit, no. "What do you want for dinner tonight?" Persona loves ceremony and spotlights. Real feeling needs a warm kitchen and a table. When persona rules, people choose the stage over the stove, the image over presence. At work in the US, it shows up as the energized teammate who showers the group chat with sugared words, yet when you ask for feedback on a draft or a co-presenter, their calendar is always full. They attend every meeting, but their mind drifts when you speak about the hard parts. You share a mistake that's been gnawing at you. They say, "No worries," and change the subject. No worries can sound kind, yet it often hides their discomfort with complex feeling. Dissociation masquerades as calm. In truth, it's a quiet exit. In close relationships, performative intimacy can wear the mask of being helpful. Your partner drives, cooks, fixes the sink, but when you say, "I feel lonely," even though we live together, he goes still, checks the time, and suggests a movie to distract you. Tasks completed, duties fulfilled. The heart. No one will stand still long enough to let it speak. Here we meet the complexes. I must be useful to be lovable, or showing feelings is weakness. The complex hugs persona and shoves feeling backstage. No one's the villain. There are simply rooms in the house of the soul that no one has learned to open. Jung doesn't tell us to rip off the mask. He asks us to notice how it's become a second skin. So what do you do when emptiness spreads like fog? Start with the body, because your body won't lie to you. Try the 60-60-60 check around warm but cold encounters. 60 seconds before, is your chest open or closed? Is your breath shallow or deep? 60 minutes after, does your energy rise or sink? And track your key relationships for 60 days to notice stable patterns. Every conversation leaves an aftertaste. Your body is the most honest recorder you have. It also helps to distinguish performative intimacy from introversion. Introverts may be quiet or low expression, but when they're present, you can feel the depth. Performers speak enough, smile on cue, even give the shoulder squeeze, but you don't feel received. The key is quality of attention. True presence slows time and lands simply. Performance speeds time up and leaves a hollow flavor. A simple scene: you host a small dinner to celebrate graduating late after years of work. One friend arrives early, helps set the table, looks you in the eye and asks, "What was the moment you most wanted to quit?" Another friend arrives with a hug, snaps a few selfies, posts, "So proud of you," then rushes off because big meeting tomorrow. Both showed up. Only one stayed with you. The difference is hard to name, but your body knows. How do you speak about the emotional distance without turning into a judge? Walk the thin line of warm, specific truth. You can say, "When big things happen for me, I crave presence more than praise. Can you stay with me a little longer here?" With closer ties, go one step further. "I'd love fewer posts, more calls. One real check-in means more to me than 10 hearts." No blame, just loving direction. If the other person can meet you in depth, they'll be grateful for the map. If they bristle, persona may be tightening. Either way, you stayed centered, where kindness holds hands with truth. Why do so many people choose performance over presence? Because presence carries risk. Risk of saying the wrong thing. Risk of being colored by someone else's emotion. Risk of seeing your own thin places. In Jung's language, that's the ego's fear of the shadow. If I get close to sorrow, it will swallow me. If I stand near big success, it will expose my smallness. Persona becomes armor, but armor can't hug. And relationships without hugging, literal or emotional, slowly lose their pulse. So how do we call the heart back into the room, yours and theirs? First, model it not with lectures, but with measured risk. When someone asks, "How are you?" try one step deeper. "I'm proud and a bit scared. This matters to me." You're sending a safety signal that depth is welcome. Next, invite balanced exchange. "I'll share for 5 minutes. Then I want to hear you for 5. What's one thing you've been hiding because you don't want to burden anyone?" Reciprocity is the antidote to performance because it turns a stage into a living room. Finally, set boundaries with the public show. If someone prefers posting about you over being with you, redirect the energy to privacy. "Let's keep this one between us. It means more that way." In groups, performative intimacy has a trendy name: performative allyship, loud online, quiet in real life. A coworker shares an anti-bullying post but stays silent when you're cut off in a meeting. Bring it from air to table. "When X interrupted, I felt dismissed. Next time, would you help by saying, 'Let her finish'?" You're converting symbols into behavior. Shadow hates specific actions because actions force us to step out from persona and into embodiment. If you live too long in the empty zone, you can start doubting your own senses. Practice gentle self-mothering. Once a week, brew tea, place a hand on chest and belly, and say 3 lines: "I see you. I believe you. I protect your time." Then choose one nourishing actions, a 20-minute walk, and one soft boundary: no messages after 9 p.m. When the good mother lives inside, you beg a little less for performative closeness outside. And let's stay humble. Haven't we all performed too? Posted encouragement to escape feeling powerless. Promised, "I'll call later," to dodge our own awkwardness. Write one apology you'd like to send. No need to send it yet. "That time I chose image over presence. I'd like a do-over." Self-forgiveness loosens persona's armor so the heart can find its way back. If this resonates, drop a story in the comments: a time you realized someone was here but not here. What did you do to keep your heart intact? Or the opposite, a time you moved through your own discomfort and stayed truly present with someone. What helped you find that courage? We're not building a courtroom, we're furnishing a big living room where each of us learns to hang up the coat and sit closer to the truth. Once you recognize intimacy without a heartbeat, you'll also spot 2 shadow pathways. Control disguised as care. I only want what's best for you, yet you feel smaller. And the whisper network, gossip wrapped in, "I'm worried about them." In the next chapter, we'll open both doors: how to tell empowering care from disempowering care, how to stop conversations from sliding into gossip, and the short, steady boundary lines that let you keep your path without picking a fight. Bring your body's measuring stick and a gentle kind of courage. We'll need both to cross the land where false love rides in on a bridle. When we step into the subtlest province of the shadow, it rarely shows its teeth. It smiles. It says, "I just care about you. I want what's best. Let me show you the safer way." But under the honeyed words, you feel yourself shrink. You second-guess your own compass right at the threshold you once trusted. In Jung's language, this is the persona overworking to cover an anxious interior. the shadow needing outer order to pacify inner chaos, so it wraps itself in a coat called care. What do you notice in your body when someone's care makes you small? How do you spot disempowering care? Your body tells you first after the conversation, your chest caves in, your inner voice goes faint, your mind fogs. Then come the inventory questions you never asked for. Have you counted the risks? Who's responsible if this fails? Or the emotional ultimatums? I can only relax if you do it my way. Sometimes they reach for your old wounds to steer your present. Last time you burned out. Don't be foolish. Reasonable maybe, true for your life now. Not necessarily. Their past lesson does not get to be your new limit. What boundary have you been outsourcing to someone else's fear? A workday example you're ready to apply to product. Your current manager beams, I'm happy for you, but to be safe, stay one more year, then move. He forwards 3 articles on career switch risks and suggests, don't make life harder than it has to be. Let's name it plainly that advice serves his need for headcount stability, not your future. His shadow fears scarcity. Shadows speak in a dialect that makes you doubt yourself. What's the truest sentence you won't let yourself say about your next step? A love example control, dressed as care, often says, I want to protect you. A friend mentions hiking solo. Her boyfriend floods her phone with accident links, demands 15-minute live location pings and urges, cancel the plan. I'll take you somewhere safer. She smiles and thanks him and gradually stops planning her own days. The issue isn't concern, it's the leash. Care that doesn't increase your capacity to choose ends up choosing for you. Where has I worry about you quietly become I steer you? The way out isn't to reject all advice, it's to distinguish empowering care from disempowering care. Empowering care asks open questions. What does this mean to you? How can I support? What's your plan? And where could I help patch gaps? Disempowering care closes the questions. That's reckless. Don't do it. I won't allow it. One gives the wheel back, the other jerks the wheel away. Which voice around you returns the steering wheel to your hands? You can set boundaries warmly and firmly in clean American English. I appreciate your care. I'm choosing this path. If I need advice, I'll ask. What would help is name one concrete support, or unsolicited advice makes me second-guess myself. Please check if I want input before offering it. If they truly care, they'll shift from driving for you to walking beside you. If they bristle, the persona may drop its mask and you'll see the controlling shadow. Another reason to keep your hands on the wheel. What boundary sentence do you want to memorize today? Now the second doorway whisper campaigns the hallway stories. When the shadow lacks the courage to face you, it goes sideways through half-truths. No need to invent lies. It cherry-picks the worst detail, removes context, sprinkles. I'm just worried about them, and sculpts a person into an impression. You feel the air change, colleagues turn cooler partners, stop sending real work, friends hover. You don't know where it started, only that you now stand under a dim light. Have you ever felt a room tilt against you for reasons you couldn't see? In teams, whisper campaigns often arrive as triangulation. A is upset with you, but won't speak to you. A vents to B just to get it off their chest, and B becomes a pipeline. Tomorrow C suddenly looks at you differently. The move is to pull the story from the hallway to the round table. I'd rather we talk directly. If there's feedback for me, I'm open to hearing it from you. That simple line declines the role of B and invites A into adult dialogue. What one sentence could you use to bring a hallway story back into the room? A family script. A relative calls you to share concern about your sister. She's been so strange lately. I'm worried. If you nod along, you've pulled up a chair to the triangle. Try I hear your concern. It'd be better to say this to her directly. Want me to conference her, and now shadows dislike direct light. This clarifies whether they want resolution or want to keep the murmur alive. Where in your family will you try this bright light invitation? 3 light but potent tools. 1 biff, brief, informative, friendly, firm. When the murmur lands in your inbox, thanks for letting me know. For clarity, here's what I actually said/did. Going forward, I'm happy to discuss it directly. Short, factual, kind, bounded. 2, the gossip interceptor. I'm comfortable speaking to A directly. I'll stop here. 3, group hygiene. Set no third-party talk when they're absent, and when work requires it, end with, who will pass this to A by when? Put words on the calendar. Bring shadows out of corridors. Which one of these will you practice this week? A wider lens, the Karpman drama triangle victim, rescuers, persecutor. Control as care often plays rescuer. Whisperers cast themselves as victim and label you the persecutor. The exit isn't swapping costumes, it's leaving the stage rescuer. Coach ask open questions, return agency victim. Creator choose the next small step, persecutor. Challenger name a clear boundary without humiliation. Try this pivot line. What do you want to create here, and what's your next small step? Where are you ready to step off the triangle and into adult-to-adult ground? Sometimes the whisperer is sincere, I'm honestly worried about her. Thank the goodwill, then ask the clarifying question, what concrete action will you take? If the answers are speak to her directly, help her find a counselor, take a week of tasks off her plate, that's care. If the answer is tell more people to watch out, that's gossip in moral clothing. What specific act of care are you willing to own? What can you do this week to lower the charge of control and gossip around you? First, reclaim naming rights. Write a one-sentence sovereignty statement. I am the final decision maker for my path, and read it aloud each morning. Second, design. A trusted ring. 3 people with a history of empowering you. They ask open questions. Don't rush to rescue. Share fledgling plans only with them. Third, calendar space. A weekly 30-minute honest check-in with a key person. No social media, no performance. Just ask and listen deeply. Small practices, big steering. Which one will you calendar today? And let's hold the mirror to our own shadow to avoid moral superiority. Have you ever rescued someone to feel important? Have you ever told someone else's story because your own feelings were hard to sit with? Write down one instance, place a hand on your heart and say, I'm sorry, I'm learning to empower. As you soften your shadow, you're less magnetized by others' shadows. What apology to yourself wants to be spoken out loud? I'd love to hear from you where one moment when you realized care was actually a leash and what helped you take back the wheel. Or a whisper situation you turned into a direct conversation. What exact sentence worked? Your story might be the hinge that helps another door close so more honest conversations can open. When you can spot love-shaped leashes and douse hallway fires with straight light, you're ready for the final layer of signs, the indifference to your wins and the micro-truths of the body, those tiny reflexes your nervous system registers before your mind finds words. Next time we'll read the flat pulse inside congratulations, why averted eyes can weigh more than 1,000 words, and how to hold the tension of opposites neither freezing nor melting. Bring your body's compass in a gentle courage. The eyes and breath often tell truer stories than language. We're entering 2 light signs that are actually heavy, the quiet indifference to your wins and the language that never leaves the mouth, the body's language. In earlier parts, the shadow wore many coats. Banter that cuts help that hinders intimacy, that's absent care that holds a leash. Here it drops the props and only microsignals remain almost impossible to fake a flat heartbeat when you share good news, eyes sliding off when you light up a shoulder that cinches as if trying to dim you. Jung would whisper, the unconscious leaks through paths that ignore the slogans of will. You don't need grand evidence, only the skill of listening to those tiny telegrams your body receives before the mind can spin a story. Think of the last time you felt genuinely proud. You texted someone called close. I got it. A reply pops back like a reflex. Congrats. Period. No question, no lingering. You tell yourself people are busy, but then it repeats. When you're sick, stay strong, then radio silence. When you win, they change the subject as soon as your story begins. The conscious mind bargains, they're good people. The body won't chest-tight throat, dry the back of your neck cool. Your body isn't demanding fireworks. It wants the real warmth of presence. Without it, the old line creeps in. Maybe I don't even deserve my own joy. In that moment, the task isn't to defend them. It's to become the gentle gatekeeper of your light. I'm allowed to stay here a little longer. How do I tell awkwardness from envy? Take the path with less judgment and more precision. Measure the quality of attention. The awkward friend may fumble words, yet still turns toward you. Asks one question, holds eye contact. A beat longer, circles back in a few days. You mention, how's it going now? The shadow-carrying one turns the beam away. One-ups, your story presses an old bruise or brushes your joy off like dust. The difference is, in the direction of energy, does it come towards you or away? A quick self-check. After sharing with them, do I feel expanded or contracted? That answer is more trustworthy than any logic. A flat congratulation rarely travels alone. It's flanked by the body's truth tellers. They hold their breath when you mention a new plan. The mouth goes rigid when someone praises you. The gaze skitters as if dodging glare. Don't turn yourself into a detective. Just notice the mismatched words go one way, the body goes another. Jung noted that our inferior function often reveals itself crudely. For many, that's the feeling realm. So when people can't stand near joy, yours or their own, their bodies get clumsy. Some clumsiness is harmless. Some pulls you down. Your work is to tell the difference and place a boundary accordingly. Picture a Friday. You step out of the office with a fresh raise in your inbox. At the old bar, your college crew cheers, glasses clink. But one friend insists on switching the topic to their deadlines and boss. You watch the head on your beer collapse and feel quietly like you're being a bother. Name that signal. No grand speech needed. Just pull the light back. I'd like to stay with this win a bit. Give me 2 minutes to share the road it took. If the space is safe, bodies turn toward you. If not, you just learned where your life's energy is and isn't respected. In families, indifference often wears the mask of stay humble. Each time you achieve, someone murmurs, don't get cocky. A pinch of salt is wise. Salted on everything, it kills the dish. When humble becomes a silencer, try a warm, clear line. Thank you for the reminder. Today I want to celebrate a bit first. Tomorrow let's talk about what to improve. You're not refusing growth, you're reclaiming the right to rejoice. This is Jung's transcendent function in action, not choosing one pole pride, withdrawal, but lifting both excitement/clear-headedness into a higher maturity. With a partner, the body reports earlier than words. You mention a work trip to New York. Their eyes flick off for a split second, shoulders rise, the congrats land short. Don't self-indict as too sensitive. Open the real room. When I said that, what did your body just do? The question doesn't hunt a culprit. It invites them back into the body where truth is honest and rough. If they say, my chest tightened, I'm afraid of distance, you have material to build a bridge. If they say, you're imagining things, you have data for a boundary, I don't debate feelings. If you'd like, we can set a time to sit with them together. You'll also want a small ritual to guard your light from friendly cold fronts. The anchor your joyride. When good news arrives before wide sharing, sit with it for 5 minutes. Hand on heart, slow breath, and say, this joy is real. It belongs in my house. Then call the right people, the ones who have shown warm presence. Choosing the audience for a tender moment isn't snobbery, it's mental hygiene. The outer shadow doesn't get to set the thermostat in your inner home. And look in the mirror. Have you ever fumbled in the face of a friend's wind-sprinkled salt where honey was needed? Write the apology you still owe. I didn't know how to stay with your joy that day. Let me try again. That line softens the persona's armor and invites the adult to step out of reflexive comparison. Practicing how to remain with another's light trains your nervous system. That light is safe and quietly makes your own light feel less threatened. At work, make presence when others win a concrete norm. When someone shares good news instead of nice. And scroll ask, what was the moment you almost quit and what kept you in it? That question slows time and moves the team off the performance stage into the living room of a true story. Collective unconscious, too, needs practice at presence. Here's the most delicate skill, reading bodies without turning life into a courtroom. Use the 3 gentle planes: breath, eyes, shoulders. Shallow breath, averted eyes, brain, tightened shoulders. This is a body protecting itself. Meet it with tiny adjustments. Lower your voice, slow your pace, offer a non-intrusive reassurance. No need to respond right now. I just want to share and sit in the joy for a moment. If they can't stay, you still can. No one else gets to calibrate the warmth of the house you've learned to tend. I'd love to weave this with our community. Share a moment you recognize subtle indifference to your win. What did you do to protect your joy? Or a time you read a tiny bodily cue and spared yourself a draining exchange. What was the cue? When we trade these micros, we teach each other the language of wordless truth, and the shared space becomes more alive. If you've come this far, you can see the whole mosaic. The shadow doesn't have to roar. It only needs repeated micros to blur your heartbeat. But you have precise, gentle tools, body as compass, boundaries as door presence, as flame, humility as soft wind. Next, we'll braid these threads into a map. How to stand between opposites without calcifying or melting. How to leave quietly when it's time, and how to grow a life where light never needs permission. Bring a small story of your own, we'll place it at the center and let it point us toward the closing chapter that doesn't end, but opens less judgment, more presence, and the courage to rejoice without apology. If you've walked with me this far, you've probably felt something simple yet hard to do. We don't have to be perfect to be loved. We need to be whole to live. Throughout this video, we trace the thin layers of the shadow, the barbed joke, the help that hinders performative intimacy, caring that disempowers corridor whispers, even the flat tone inside a congratulation. This isn't about condemning anyone. It's about returning your inner compass to you, a body that tells the truth and a self-respect that opens the right doors. At this waypoint, bring every piece you've gathered, lay them on the table, and choose a few small things that can pivot your life in the coming week. Let's begin with a gentle commitment. I will not shrink myself to keep the peace. I will keep the peace by not betraying myself. From this 3 simple, deep practices, body compass before, during, and after a meeting, track 3 signals, chest open or closed, breath deep or shallow, mind clear or foggy. A 90-day log 5 quick columns who context, behavior, timing, impact, so you see patterns instead of living by impressions. Kind boundaries, short, warm, specific. I value playfulness, but when we joke about X, my body tightens. I don't want that kind of joke anymore. Keep it brief, no moral labels enough for decent people to adjust. Jung reminds us where the opposites meet, a third way opens. So this isn't a call to cut off or to endure, but an invitation to hold the tension of opposites, like an adult kindness, with truth, softness, with limits, listening with choosing. When you can stand there, worthy relationships grow warmer. The unready ones step back, no warfare required. To widen the picture, add 4 pieces to your path. 10 minutes of active imagination each week. Write a dialogue with the inner critic. What are you protecting, and retrain it from prosecutor to gatekeeper. Sunday remothering. I see you, I trust you. I protect your time, then pick 1 nourishment plus 1 boundary for the week. Biff desk for hard talks. Brief, informative, friendly, firm. Describe emotion, suggestion. Consequence. A ring of trust, 3 people with a track record of empowering you. Bring fragile plans to them before you share widely. These turn knowledge into muscle, the strength we need in real life. 1 ground ethic, don't diagnose a whole life from a few signs. Use the 3x3 context rule before concluding. Distinguish the awkward from the shadow that drags you down. And when things are out of depth, violence, severe manipulation, mental health crisis, seek a professional. Don't stay alone. Insight isn't a weapon, it's a flashlight. Use it to find the path, not to blind each other. Because modern life carries us away, here's the 7-line journey, a tiny morning litany. 1 minute that can orient your day. Whisper it, journal it, or tape it to your mirror. Today I return to the center. I honor my body as a speaking temple. I distinguish imagination, desire, and action. Every action comes with consent and respect. I speak the truth in a warm, clear voice. I set boundaries to protect what I love. I listen to symbols, dreams, images, intuition, and turn them into small 24-hour actions. I pass on what is good kindness to myself and to one other person today. Live with these 7 lines and the self stops being a concept. It becomes the rhythm of your steps, the way you open a door, the way you say no as a deeper yes to what is worthy. If you lose your way, as we all do, treat it as a message, not a verdict. Return to a 15-minute circle. Write 3 imperfect sentences, draw a small circle, place a hand on your heart. The heart doesn't blame you for being away. It simply waits for your return. A small ritual to anchor the light. Next time good news arrives, big or small, stay with it for 5 minutes before sharing. Hand on heart. Deep breath. Whisper. This joy has a place in my house. Then call the right person. If you don't have the right person, build here in the comments, name 1 sign you've noticed and 1 boundary you'll set this week. Read each other's stories so we remember we're not alone on the path back to center. If this content helps you breathe a little deeper, subscribe and turn on the bell. Not for the numbers, but because we're building a living room where depth psychology is spoken in everyday language. No preaching, no cheap theatrics, just steady light. Next video will go deeper into the animus, the critical voice in a woman's inner life, and how to turn it from attacker into discerning ally. There will also be a beginner's episode on dreams, how to sit with a red door without rushing to a meaning. Keep one image from this video, a house at night. Every room is softly lit, just enough to walk without stumbling. You stand before a red door. The room you rarely open, boundaries, joy, anger, freedom. The key has been in your pocket all along your body, short, clear truths in small, steady courage. Decode, you won't lose anyone. You'll simply choose those who can stand in the light without squinting. The world doesn't need you perfect, just present. Another image, a kintsugi bowl on your kitchen table. Each gold seam is a lesson learned with your whole heart, separating the personal mother from the archetypal mother. Hearing the shadow without self-condemnation. Inviting the animus to speak in a low, clear, warm voice. Protecting eros with boundaries, calendars, and small daily rituals. This is calm dignity, spacious, warm, and clear. You're not a better version to show off. You are yourself, quiet enough to be kind, clear enough to choose. Before we part, leave 3 lines in the comments. 1. One sign you'll notice differently starting today. 2. One boundary statement you'll try this week. 3. One image from a dream or recent life that symbolizes your joy. I'll read and pin a few as small lamps for those who come after. Thank you for walking together, not to hunt the dark, but to light a few more lamps. If this touched you, I invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications, not to count, but to keep a regular rhythm for the soul each week, a circle, a story, a small ritual. Drop a like if any part helped you breathe. The algorithm will carry this fire to those who need it. And if you know a friend, a sister, a colleague standing in rough waters, share the video. You might be the temporary bridge they need. And if you're wondering, how much can I really change? Jung's answer is humble and steady. One just enough step for today. One clean breath, one clear boundary, one sincere touch, one dream page, one rough mandala, one 5-minute living dialogue, one small no to protect a larger yes. Repeated just enoughs make the footpath back to the center where you no longer have to prove you're worthy. You know you were given this life to be lived, not graded.